Good morning. Hello. I am trying my camera at a different angle to see how that looks. And if you're joining me in a minute, here we go. If you're gonna join in a minute, let me know you're here. I think this angle might work a little better, so hopefully you can see a little better. And yeah, we can all yeah, just that you can see better. That was my that was my goal. The first thing I wanted to mention is yesterday I mentioned the little brush cleaner that comes in the first box, and this is what it is. It's, like I said, it's a makeup brush cleaner. So it makes a little bowl like so. But I just leave it flat. You can put it, like, you can have it in a bowl and put like water in it yourself. But I leave it flat and I put it in, this is the first water bowl that I use to rinse my brushes because I have 3. And I just have this dishwasher tab container, and it fits, it fits perfectly down in there. So I wanted to show you guys that as that comes in the first box as a brush cleaner. It's kind of got these little ribby things on it, and it, when you scrub your brush on it, it kind of helps break up the paint off of your brush. So I wanted to show you guys that, what it looks like, since my water yesterday was already dirty when Christina, I joined myself now. But anyway, I wanted to show this little brush cleaner bowl that comes in your first box. So I have one in mine. I like it because of the little ribs, and you can kind of brush your paint brushes against it. And then I haven't tried the liquid brush cleaner that they sent. I told you they sent it by mistake, and then they told me to keep it. So I haven't tried that out yet, but it's coming in your box also. So Christina, since you've been watching, is this view better, you think? I turned my camera a different way, so let me know if you think that view is a little better, and if you can still hear me okay, because now the microphone is facing a different way. So I want to make sure you can still hear me also. But we are going to move forward. I forgot my little paint cart. I got to move that over here. Because we can't paint without paint, huh? So I have this little cart that I just sit beside me. It's got all my paints in it, so I don't have to have them in the way on my table. So we are ready to go. We are going to add more layers on this leopard background. The first color we're going to use is called Hibiscus. It is an Yvette Saint Amant color. It is a kind of a bubblegum pink is how I would describe it. I can see more of your paper, and I can, okay, good, perfect. Thank you, Christina, for I knew I could count on you to tell me. Anyway, this is like a bubblegum pink. It's an Yvette Saint Amant color. So I'm gonna just, and again, these colors that we add here, completely just random, where I want them, where I put them. There's no rhyme or reason to where they are. I am gonna cover up some of the white that I initially had, covering up some of the stenciling, some of the acrylic ink that we used. And that's just the joy of layering, is you kind of cover up some stuff, you let some stuff peek through, and that's just kind of the fun of it. I love, I just love the layering aspect of this type of painting. So we can change the direction of our brush sometimes. And I'm going to put some right here. And I'm just going to kind of keep painting until I'm out of this paint, like I did yesterday. Because I don't give myself very much, and then when I'm out of it, then I move to the next color. All right, so the next color we're going to use is Papaya. It is more of it's a peachy color also. Like yesterday we used the Coral Peach. This is Papaya, so it's a darker peach than what we used yesterday. So I'm going to squirt a little bit of that on here. And same as yesterday, I'm not even gonna rinse my brush off because it's in the pink orange class, so it will kind of just blend in all together. You won't even notice that I used the same brush. I hope everyone had a good night last night. I certainly did. I relaxed a little bit, watched some TV. I needed to schedule some more Facebook posts, but I didn't do that. I was bad. The joy of scheduling them, which is why I was going to do it, is then like when I'm doing something like this, I don't have to worry that my Facebook page is still being active and managed, but I just didn't get it done. So I'll do that after this live, probably, just so I can have the next several days kind of filled up and managed. Okay, whoops, I put my finger right in that pink, of course. I'm out of Papaya. So now I am going to use my next color I'm going to use is called Magnolia Pink. So it is a very, very light pink. All of these are Yvette colors. So I really love her paints, as you can tell. So, and I actually talked to her yesterday and told her I got my shipment of her paints to start including in my boxes. Oh, that was the other thing I needed to tell you guys. So I was incorrect in telling you they were 2-ounce bottles, because that's what these are, and that's what I thought we were getting. But we're getting 1-ounce bottles, which is just, they're smaller, but there's still going to be a whole bunch of paint in there. Like, I use very little paint, and but they're so cute. I'm just a sucker for little tiny things, and so they're little 1-ounce bottles, and they're super cute. But there's still going to be plenty of paint in there. Yes, Christina, I love the layering too. Layering to me is so fun. It's so freeing. You don't have to stress about it. I just love the layering. And then of course we're going to do some more stenciling on top of this layer. So, and as you can see, like sometimes I try to make like perfect blocks or perfect circles or whatever, but for this painting, it just really works for it to be just completely random brush strokes going over other areas of the painting, and just kind of letting it develop on its own, kind of, is what I would say. But yeah, the next step is to do some more stenciling on top of this layer, with still letting pieces, I mean, we can still see the pieces of the very first layer that we put on here. But it just makes it so much more interesting, and I don't know, just more eye appealing, I think. And so then when when we put the leopard on top of this, it just really makes it pop. The next color and the final color for this layer is called French Lilac, and it really does look like basically covers one of the colors you see, lilacs. And this is one of my very favorite colors too. So it's kind of similar to the Fig Mist that we used, that was the Yvette color. Let me get that out real quick. It is a very similar color. Oh, where is it? But Yvette's has more of a, I don't know, more of a tannish color, I think, in it. But they're very similar, which is why I like her Fig Mist too, because like French Lilac is definitely one of my favorite colors. But this is our last color we're going to add to this layer. Christina, I bet you could do something similar in your kids' craft. Just, you know, letting them just layer and do whatever they want and see what they come up with, because then every single one would be totally different, and that would be so fun, I think. Because that's what I always said about when I used to do paint parties was, you know, you're all doing the same painting basically, and I'm telling you the same steps in order, but all of them turn out so different, and it's so fun to watch that that progression, and that, you know, the same painting for each person turns out so different, and just like how they develop their own, you know, how they want it to look. And that's kind of what I like about this group too, is that, you know, for part of our lessons, you know, we're all going to be doing the same project, but they'll all be they'll all have their own little differences about them. So that is always fun for me to see how people kind of put their own little style into it. So I'm going to set this aside for it to dry a little bit. I don't want to stencil on top of this because then it just creates a muddy mess. But we will come back to this one here in a second. So the next thing I'm going to do is on this crackle board. So you probably can't see it, but I kind of took a pencil, like a chalk pencil. I'm sorry, not a chalk pencil. I can't remember what they're called. A pencil. Charcoal, that's what it is. A charcoal pencil. And I kind of drew in where the flowers are. It won't show once I start painting but I just wanted to, my original painting for this, there's like a white background that makes it really pop off of this background. So I wanted to draw in kind of where the flowers are, so I kind of know where my edge is. So that's what I did. And first, another little tip that I will tell you, when you are painting white and you want it to be very, very white and create a very prominent white background where the colors will really pop, and you're covering up other colors and dark colors, if you paint that first layer with gray and then paint the white on top of it, once that gray dries, your white will be so much bolder. And so since we have these dark areas of crackle and then we have the blue that we're covering up, I'm gonna paint my initial border with gray, and then once that dries, we'll come back with white. So that is another little fun paint tip from Jess. So put that in your little arsenal of tools. All right, so I'm gonna start with this gray. Like I said, you probably can't see my charcoal pencil, but like I said, it doesn't really matter. I'm essentially covering it up. I just wanted to know like where the edge of my border needed to be approximately, just because I wanted to, you know, you want a little bit of a border around those flowers to make them really pop. But as long as I can see it, then you can at least see kind of where I'm painting and know that, oh yeah, there must be an edge of a flower there. Sorry, I was reading your post, Christina. Yeah, paint parties they are fun. I used to host them here, and I actually just had a friend of mine who has a business ask me if I was still doing them because she was wanting to book one at her business, and I was like, yeah, they just really got to be not fun for me anymore. So I kind of quit. I had to refocus and kind of pivot my business a little bit. So because I want to enjoy what I'm doing, and I really wanted to develop this style of teaching online and doing this subscription box. So I just told her, I really kind of stopped doing it, and she was fine with it. There's other people she can reach out to. She just wanted to give me first opportunity because I had done some paint parties for her at her business already. So I love going to paint parties still, just kind of to, like I said, it's the reason I like to be a part of paint groups also, is because sometimes I just want someone else to decide for me, decide what I'm going to paint, and decide what, what color palette we might use, even though I don't always follow directions very well at those kind of parties, but just because I kind of like to do my own thing sometimes. But I think everybody does. And the funnest paint party I ever went to, or the most fun, I don't know which is grammatically correct. You teacher people can tell me. But the most fun paint party I went to, I had hosted a paint party at a place for my daughter's birthday one time. And so a bunch of her friends came, and it was really fun, just watching them laugh and giggle and, have a good time. Well, then one of her friends that was very artsy talked to the business owner and asked if she could come and do a paint party herself. And I was like, wow, that's really awesome. This girl was like 16, really brave and awesome to want to hey, can I come in your business and do this? And of course the lady said yes. I mean, she was super nice lady. And so a bunch of my daughter's friends, were like, oh yeah, we'll come. And so my daughter and I went, and the painting that she was doing, it was so fun. So what she did was, the background of the painting was giraffe print, like the pattern of a giraffe. That was the background. And then she did just a black silhouette of the giraffe on the background. And I was like, wow, how creative and how fun, So I did it exactly like it was the girl led it in class, because I just thought it was very stunning and a very creative take on a giraffe painting. But my daughter, she decided she was going to paint hers for her brother. So she did her background. His favorite colors at the time were blue and orange. And so she did her background giraffe pattern in orange and like a cream color. So still kind of giraffe-like. And then she did the silhouette in the royal blue. And it was really cool, just because I wouldn't have thought of that. She was like, well, these are his favorite colors. I'm like, what a fun idea. So that was a really fun paint party, just this 16-year-old, trying to lead everyone, because there was adults there too. I mean, several of her friends signed up, because I think then she was afraid that what if I do it and no one shows up. but it was really fun and really creative. So, okay, so I have the gray painted in there. We're gonna let that dry. I will let this dry until my next live because, you know, it just kind of, if you try to paint that white on top of that gray before it's dry, it just won't work real well. So I will set that aside. I have a pretty long desk, you guys, but when I have so many things that are wet, I kind of run out of space to put things. So then I'm going to come back to this. This is dry enough now because acrylic paint dries pretty quickly that we are going to do the stencil. And I chose a florally stencil, and I'm going to put it right here in the middle because I'm going to kind of do most of the stencil. I'm going to use mulberry, which is this kind of darker purple color, another Yvette color. Surprise, surprise. I was trying to remember how many colors she has, but I think I have all of them except maybe two or three maybe. And she recently had a holiday special. I think it was maybe around, it might have been Valentine's Day, but she ran a holiday special, which she pretty well does a holiday special every holiday on either some of her classes or her paintings or whatever, or her paint. But she had a buy 3 get 1 free special, and so I was like, I'm going to totally take advantage and get all of the colors that I don't already have. So I have almost all of her colors, but her paint is just fabulous. I can't wait for you guys to start getting it. So I have my little trusty sponge out here again. I'm offloading a lot of my paint. And the thing I'm going to do about this stencil is I'm going to start stenciling, and I'm not going to necessarily worry about it being full coverage in every spot. So I'm just going to stencil, you know, use my sponge, and when it starts running out of paint, that's where my stenciling is going to get lighter, which is what I want. I don't want it all to be super dark. But then when it does lighten up, I'm not going to go back over that with dark again. I just want it to kind of not all be super dark. I just want it to kind of fade away in some spots. So that's what I'm doing with this stencil. If you're afraid your stencil will move, you can use like painter's tape to hold it down. If I'm doing a big project, sometimes I will do that. This I can pretty well hold in place as I'm doing it. But I'm gonna lift this up for a minute and just kind of show you how like that effect of it fading away, it's just kind of fun. I really like how that turns out. I should have picked, and I didn't even think about it, a stencil that would cover the whole page of the paper, so I didn't kind of have that border, but I'm not gonna worry about it. I think I did choose a different stencil on my on my original one, and I think it did kind of cover the whole page instead of kind of having that border, but it's okay. This one, you know, is going to be a little different. So, and I can always come back with the stencil, like move it over and kind of match up some pieces, but I'm not going to stress over it that much. That's too much stress for me. I'm not a stressful artist. So, I used to do a lot of stenciling. That's kind of how my art business up here in Wisconsin kind of got started. Was I had a little shop where I did, I flipped furniture, which I so love to do. I wish I could do it more, but I don't have the room for it since I closed up my shop. I just wasn't busy enough to justify the overhead. And but when I did that, I also like offered like some home decor stuff. So I would do like the stenciled type signs that you see that, you know, everybody kind of does now. And I would do some stenciling on some of the furniture. which was really fun. And I would do decoupage on furniture sometimes, like on the drawers or something, or inside the drawers. So I used to do quite a bit of stenciling, and then because I used to be even a brand ambassador for a stencil company. They had kind of reached out to me and said, you know, they wanted to market their stencils a little bit, and they wanted to know if I would be a brand ambassador for them. And I was like, absolutely. You know, they let me pick the stencil and the product, or the project I wanted to do. And so then they would send me the stencil for free. And, you know, so it was just kind of fun. So look at that, how fun that is, where some of it's dark, some of it's light, and then you can still see all of those layers popping through. And like I said, this kind of art is so fun to me. Like you could totally use this as a piece of art in your home without even the leopard on it. I think it's very abstract looking, which is very, very popular. My husband and I went to an art gallery one weekend just because I was like, I want to go to an art gallery just to look, you know. And so we were looking at the paintings, and I told him there was this very, very abstract red and black and orange, and it was really big. Like it was, you would have to have a really big blank wall. It was probably, you know, a good 6 foot by probably 12 or 15 foot. And it was just very eye-catching. And I told him, I was like, this is going to sell before this one. And the other one was like a painting of a barn and some flowers, or, you know, a very realistic painting. And he goes, nuh-uh. And I was like, yeah, I guarantee that this one will sell. Because abstract art is, I don't know what about it, but it is so, it's so eye-catching to most people. And if you're going to hang something in your house, a lot of people want it to be abstract. My husband is not an abstract fan. He doesn't see the point in it. He doesn't see like, that's not art to me. And I'm like, well, I get that, but to a lot of people it is. So that's the stenciling. So we're done with this leopard one until I think the next, I don't know if it's the next live or it's tomorrow, where we'll actually do the leopard on top of all these layers now. So, hi Louise. Yeah, isn't this fabulous? I love all of the layering, and you'll have to watch the replay at the beginning to kind of see the additional layers that I added on, but I love how this turns out. So I will set this aside again, and now we are going to decoupage our cardinal onto our, well, first I need to cut the edges. So this is our decoupage paper that we did yesterday, or the piece that we decoupaged the pieces of paper on yesterday. And so the best way to cut that excess off, what I do is I just turn it over and I start just cutting along the edge of the base paper, the paper that we glued it to. And that way you have a nice straight edge. And then after I can't really see the edge there, it's kind of blending in. And then I'm going to ask your opinion, since I have some people on here. More texture, more color. Oh, fun. I had a fabulous art teacher. She was great. I took 4 years of art with her. I just loved her. And she really was, you know, she encouraged us to use our own creativity with each project, even though we kind of had a starting point. But, you know, we would do like a portrait of somebody, and she wouldn't say you have to do a portrait of, I don't know, Julia Roberts, just to pick a name. You don't have to do a portrait of Julia Roberts. We got to pick our own, you know, subjects. And that, I just think that made it really fun versus, you know, sometimes art teachers will say, okay, we're all going to do a portrait of Julius Caesar or whatever. And if you don't have an interest in Julius Caesar, that's just not going to be very fun. So yeah, I loved my art teacher. So my question is for you guys that are watching. So I have this decoupage piece, and then this was the original one I did. And I now have two cardinals on the cross. And of course this cross was a little different. So I'm still thinking this one looks better on this, and this one will look better on this because of the lighter colors. But what do you guys think? Should I reverse them? Or should I leave them like my original one on the one that was? Tell me what you think. A giant portrait of Mel Gibson. That's awesome. So my portrait choices, we had to do pencil art, and I was a huge Marilyn Monroe fan, so I did Marilyn Monroe and pencil art. I also did a Walt Disney that my daughter still has, because around his face I have like all the characters like Mickey Mouse and Minnie Mouse and Goofy and Pluto and, you know, all of the original Donald Duck. And then we had to do a chalk painting or drawing, and at the time I was a big Garth Brooks fan, so I did Garth Brooks. So anyway, it was fun to be able to choose who we wanted to do, and both of those were like 16 by 20, so pretty big. But I don't know that I have the Garth Brooks one anymore, but it's irrelevant. But so what do you guys think? Should I leave the original one on the original background and then put the new one on this multicolor background to pick up the light colors? Or should I reverse them like so? Any thoughts? I'm gonna go ahead and get my gel medium out here. I just really can't decide. I think I'm gonna stick with, I don't really know. They both look good on each one, I think. I think I'm gonna leave it like this, maybe. I'm just gonna go with it. So, now that stress is over, it looks like I missed some edges on this one. Because I hadn't actually decoupaged the original one on yet, because I knew I wanted to be able to show you guys, and I was going to use it as a, like, tracing it. Reverse. So you think the new one on the old paper, Christina, like this? I do kind of like this darker cross on this one. I think your original position. Oh, now I have one of each. One of each opinions. So I kind of think this light cross picks up some of these light elements on this one, is why I was thinking that. So I'm just gonna go, I'm gonna do this. Sometimes I'm not a great decision maker when I don't know. So I am going to put some gel medium on here. I'm only going to do about half at a time, just because once it starts to dry, it kind of is harder to work with. And kind of make sure it's kind of straight, and then we're just going to, like we did yesterday, just kind of push fairly hard and kind of smooth that out to try not to have any wrinkles. Now it will look like there's some wrinkles in it because of the creases of the paper underneath, which is why I decided to decoupage the whole page of this one, and where this one is not the full page. So then I'll turn it this way and kind of peel this back. And finish this end. My dog kind of got excited. My husband just got home. So you probably hear her kind of rustling around in the background because my craft room, my painting room is actually the sunroom of our tiny house. And that is also like our front entrance to the house. So that's where he came in, and she's usually kind of laying in here with me, but she's been laying on the couch. So there. So yeah, I really like that dark one on there. I think that looks nice. I'll move that one and I'll kind of put this one on too. Yeah, I'm excited for you guys to try this gel medium when you do decoupage. I think that you'll really like the outcome a little better. I find it's easier to kind of get it smoothed out, I think. And I don't even remember where I learned that. I think it was another craft person that I did a craft with, and I was like, gel medium, what's that? But yeah, once I figured out that kind of process and how much, I think it's easier to work with too because it's a little thicker than like Mod Podge, but it's easier to get it smooth, I think, too. And of course, this is very thin paper, so of course there's going to be a few wrinkles anyway, but since it's the hymnal paper, kind of like newspaper, but then of course there's also the creases of where you're, ooh, that's a big wrinkle. Let's see if we can get more of that out. What was I saying? Oh, the creases of like the decoupage paper underneath will show a little bit, but overall it turns out really cute, and I probably will frame these and give them as gifts. I have a few people that have lost loved ones recently, and I think I'll just give them as gifts to, especially I actually did draw the cardinal onto that other hymnal page that was more of a, I don't remember what the song was, but I drew one on there too that I'll probably go ahead and finish. I'm just putting an extra layer of this gel medium on top just so there's a consistent, even though this is, I think it might be matte. No, it is gloss. It's gloss, so I want it all to have a consistent glossy look. So I'm just kind of putting a layer over, making sure I've covered on top like this. And we're all done with the cardinals. The cardinals are complete. So look at that. This, if we would have done this project start to finish like a normal person instead of a crazy person who's doing 5 paintings all together, you could do this very quickly, because if you decoupage your pieces of paper on first, and while that's drying, you kind of paint the cardinal and the cross, and then by the time you're done with that, your decoupage is dry, and then you can decoupage your music note paper onto the background, and you're done. So it's a really quick project, a good gift idea for, you know, people who've lost loved ones or whatever, because cardinals, of course, are kind of representative of, you know, your loved ones coming back to visit. So is the cardinal bird associated with? Yes, it is. Here in the U.S., the cardinal is associated with loss, and people think that, you know, cardinals coming into their yard are loved ones coming back to visit. And I recently did a death visit because, you know, you guys both know I'm a hospice nurse. And while I was there, before the funeral home had come to pick up the family member, a cardinal landed on the windowsill and was just singing and just chirping. And it was, the family, of course, you know, believed too that was their dad coming back to say goodbye. And I just thought that was very a very special moment. I was glad that I got to share that with the family, but I was for sure glad that the family got that special moment too. But yeah, here it's kind of associated with lost loved ones coming back to visit. So yeah, it's odd how different companies or different countries have different things that represent loss and such. So thank you for sharing that, Louise. Okay, so now we're back to our wine glass floral. I'm going to move my little messy mat out of the way. And we're going to paint the background layers of my flowers, and eventually we're going to use palette knife on the flowers, but I want a good background layer first. So I'm going to get a little bit more of this mulberry. That's actually one of the colors I used on the flowers in this one. So I'm going to get some mulberry, and that's going to be this rose color. So I'm just going to kind of paint in a base layer for this rose. I try to make my strokes follow the way that the petals would be, you know, so they're in a kind of a circular fashion. So I try to make my paint strokes go that way. Okay, so there's that one. Okay, then the next color I'm going to use is Mango. It's an Aved color also. It's kind of I call it like a dandelion yellow is what color it reminds me of. But even with her paints that have exceptional coverage, it still doesn't cover on the first coat. So yellow is just a really hard color to get full coverage on. Oh, the other thing, Louise, I was going to mention is in the Launch Your Box group, if you have seen the Cardinal box, that is a lady who is creating, it's not like a memorial box. It's focused on dementia, families with dementia, not patients. If it's your family, it's not a patient, but families with a family member who has dementia. Her box is focused on that, but she calls herself the Cardinal Nurse. And so I just thought that was really interesting too, because she has been a hospice nurse as well, and that's kind of where she got her name. So just another little more background on that. So remember when I traced the flowers, I didn't trace all of the petals, you know, because then you can just kind of leave it open to interpretation where you want to put the petals. I just kind of get the idea of where the flower is. And so a little bit of that purple is mixing because it's not dry yet, but it'll be covered up, so I'm not worried about it. And I'm probably not even going to worry about putting a second coat of this mango on these little daisy flowers, because since we're going to use a palette knife, the background is really just to make sure you have good coverage before you're using the palette knife. So it's not really even necessary to make sure there's full coverage or whatever. But both of these daisy flowers are going to be this mango yellow color. do either of you paint with palette knives at all? I don't do it as often as I used to. I really enjoy painting with palette knives, but I don't do it as often as I used to. So I'm excited to kind of do that with you. And I'm trying to come up with a project for my box that would incorporate them, because they're a great tool to have for not just, you know, creating texture, but I do some other fun things with them too. Okay. Okay, now for my next color is this honeysuckle color that I used yesterday at the top. It's kind of that, I don't know, corally red color. It's kind of an odd color, which is the other thing I like about Yvette's paints, is she tries to pick colors that you can't just find anywhere. You know, because several people will ask her, you know, what color is close, you know, can I find that's the same color in a different brand? And she's like, well, that's the that's the advantage of her colors, is they're not just colors you can go find anywhere else. Because, you know, even when I was talking about the Fig Mist and the French Lavender, they have similar, like they're in the same color family, but they're not the same color. But they accent each other very well. But I really like this color too. I'm not really a fan of pinks, but I do love peaches and corals. So I tend to navigate to those colors over choosing pink a lot of times. Painting is not, you know, like you will hardly ever find me in a pink shirt. I'm not a pink clothing person at all. But painting pink is different, so. But I still think I tend to navigate more to peaches and corals versus pinks. Christina, you've tried the palette knife and you need more practice. It definitely is a skill that takes some practice, but the nice thing about it is it's kind of, you know, supposed to be irregular per se. So, you know, it's okay if it's not perfect, because it's kind of just supposed to be irregular. And now this last one I'm going to make white. So I might let it dry a little bit before I actually, we'll see how it goes. I actually want this one to just be a daisy. I'm not gonna probably do a palette knife on this little one. One, it's really hard to do palette knife small, even with a small palette knife, but it's kind of in the background, so I don't want to really mess with it too much. So I'll let that dry, and then I'll come back and put another coat of that white on. So since we started with this background, I'm gonna go ahead and use the, gotta find my, oh, they're over here. palette knife on the ones that are dry. So I use two different things to, the thicker gel medium you can use. I tend not to because I don't like the look of it. What I use is either, I'm trying to find the one I want to show. Well, let me just show you quick. These are all my palette knives. So as you can see, I really like using them. I like all different shapes and sizes. So I was just trying to decide, like, which one do I want to use? I already got this small one out here, which is I'm probably going to use. But then I have this other one, this skinny one that I like for these daisies because you can kind of shape them a little better. So since I was trying to decide, I was like, well, now's the perfect time to kind of show you all of them I have. Like I said, I used to do a lot of painting with them. I don't as much anymore, and I don't really know why. I just kind of stopped, I guess. So these little trays, I told you that I used. One of the two things I do use is called joint compound, and it is like the same stuff you use in your house for like spackling. You use it. So I've used it, which is what I'm going to use today. The other thing I use is called modeling paste, and I usually get a big jar of it on Amazon, and it'll last me forever. But the joint compound I'm trying to get used up, so I'm going to use it today. And so I'm using the back side of these little trays because I need a flat surface when I go to get the paint. I tried it in here and then I couldn't get the paint out. So I'm going to use just a little, kind of a hefty dose of that. I'm going to set that aside, and then I'm going to, the joint compound and the modeling paste both will kind of lighten up your paint a little bit. So the first one I'm going to do is I'm going to get, use mulberry. And it does, depending on how much paint you use, it will thin it a little bit too. So you want to be careful not to use too much paint when you're doing it. So again, I just put this on the back of this tray, and I'm just going to kind of mix it together. And just kind of makes up a thicker paint. And this just kind of saves you from having to buy more paint. You know, you can go buy like the thicker full body paint to do your palette knives with, but I found that once I like the acrylic colors, it's easier just to buy the one big thing of either joint compound or modeling paste and then just mix your own color up. So that's what I tend to do. Okay, so as you can see, the joint compound, since it's white, it did kind of lighten this up a little bit, which is totally fine. It just creates more dimension. So I'm just going to take a little dollop on my palette knife, and I'm just going to kind of spread this around. I'm not going all the way to the edge, again, because I want that other dark color to kind of show a little bit. And then I'm just kind of spreading it around to where I want it. And again, I'm trying to stick, whoop, I about spilled that. Sticking to the shapes, going in the shapes of the petals. I usually will turn my paper to kind of make it a little easier, but since it's taped to this big clipboard, I'm just kind of making it work. And you just kind of play around with it, shaping it up, kind of getting it where you want it to go. Okay. So that's the first one. We're just going to let that dry. I'm going to kind of rinse this palette knife off. The other thing that I tend to do, and I didn't do it before I mixed my paint with the joint compound, but see, I have some of this purple left in here, so I'm going to use this smaller one to try to get some more of that on my, and I am going to kind of scrape some of this color down here in this table. And that just kind of helps make a more cohesive look with all the different colors. And I'll do that with all of the flower colors. So, okay. So now on to the next one. So I'm going to use with Mango. I would normally just clean this off with a wipe, but I've used this one several times. I'm just going to toss it because I think I told you guys that these are little hors d'oeuvre trays. I get them at the Dollar Tree. Louise, I don't know if you have a Dollar Tree in the UK or something similar, but they're little hors d'oeuvre trays. They're like, well, they're not $1 anymore. They're $1.25, but they're $1.25 for 12. And so like, it's a super cheap, like something when you need a little something that you don't want to have to worry about washing or rinsing out or whatever. I'll reuse them a couple of times and then I just toss them. So, but I'm using the back side. So I'm going to do the yellow now. So I'm going to get me another kind of a hefty scoop of my joint compound onto my tray there, and then I'm gonna use this smaller palette knife to kind of get this yellow out because it's and while I have some yellow on my palette knife, I'm gonna go ahead and do some yellow down here. We have the Pound Shop. Okay, so yeah, something similar then. So I don't know if they have anything like that, but like I said, they're just called little hors d'oeuvre trays. So here in the Dollar Tree, they're like with the throwaway party plates and cups and silverware, like all the throwaway disposable accessories that you can use for like parties and stuff. That's where I found them. And they pretty well have them all of the time. They don't always have a whole bunch of them unless it's like close to a party time of year. So like they'll have them around graduation, they have them at Christmas, they have them, you know, and like I said, most of the time they have them, but sometimes it's a little harder to find. Okay, so I'm gonna stick that over there. Like I said, I'm gonna use this more skinny palette knife to do these little daisy shapes. So I'm gonna avoid the middle because I want to put in a color, obviously. So I'm just putting a little bit on my palette knife, kind of doing, and then dragging towards the middle. See, now I have to turn my hand the other way, and it's a little trickier. If I was ambidextrous, it would work. My husband could do it because he was originally left-handed, and when he went to kindergarten, the teacher, he's in that era where the teacher switched him to right-handed. His mother was furious because she had bought all of the left-handed stuff, you know, left-handed scissors, and then the teacher made him start writing with his right hand. And so he does like some things left-handed, like if he's going to play pool or anything like, he's not an athlete, but like sports type, you know, like if he were going to play tennis, he would do it left-handed. Or if he does volleyball or something, he kind of tends to use his left hand more. And then my daughter is left-handed, and when she was younger, she would kind of go back and forth about which hand she would use depending on what she was doing. So, but I think as she's gotten older, she's more like completely left-handed. Like she doesn't use her right hand as much. But I probably should just start practicing with my left hand and see if I can. See, to you guys, it probably looks like I'm using my left hand anyway because the camera's reversed. Okay, so since I have some of this left, I am going to go ahead on this flower. It's going to have this yellow center. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of put the rest of this in the center here. And I think I will on the white one too, even though I don't plan to use the palette knife on that white one. I'm going to have it use that yellow to make that center also. Because it's kind of just just make that little dot there. Kind of got carried away, but that's okay. Okay, so we just have one more color. I'm going to rinse that off. One I was used for mixing, which is I'm going to set this one aside because I can wipe that off, which is the honeysuckle color. So I'm going to get me another, not as much maybe, but another little dollop of the joint compound, and scrape this honeysuckle in here. And I'm going to go ahead and put some coral scrapes down here. Okay. So now we can mix this all together again. What do you guys think of this, just using Yeah, that's awesome, Christina, about your daughter. Because like I said, my daughter, when she first started playing t-ball, she was very shy, very timid. But she's left-handed, and she was batting left-handed or whatever. Well, the first away game they had, so you're on, no, I think it was let's see, I don't remember. One of the games, she wouldn't cross home plate to bat. So she walked up to the plate and she was like gonna bat right-handed. And I'm like, what is she doing? Because we thought, well, this is a surprise, but she just was afraid to cross the plate. So she just walked up to the tee and batted right-handed. And so for the longest time, that's what she would do, depending on what side their dugout was at, which side of the tee she would bat. And it was the funniest thing, because when I asked her, I was like, why were you batting right-handed? And she goes, I didn't think I should cross to the other side. It's like, yeah, it's okay. That's kind of how you do it. Like whichever side you're used to batting on. But she just was, she just was a shy, timid person and just wasn't going to ask and wasn't going to do it that way. She eventually, learned to bat all left-handed, but yeah, the first time she did that, I looked at my husband and I was like, what is she doing? Because it just shocked us all that Anyway, what do you get? What I was going to say is, what do you guys think about this mixing your own paint to do with a palette knife? I mean, it definitely is a money saver, not having to order or buy more paint in the full body to but and that way you can, you can completely match colors that you've created already. Whew, I need to do some practicing with my left hand. I can't turn my wrist that way to make it look like a petal and then drag it to the middle. Okay, so we're done with those. Yeah, I like the texture of the flowers too. It just kind of adds a little extra to the painting. Since it's on paper, of course, that extra texture will make the paper a little heavy. But of course, if you framed it or whatever, it wouldn't be a deal, an ordeal. So, but we're gonna let that dry, of course, and then I'll come in and show you. Oh, that was the other thing I needed to do is I'm going to use the orange as the centers of these yellows. So I forgot to put the little centers in here. But once they're dry, I'll do another little step with these a little bit to kind of show you something that I tend to do. Not everyone does it. Not everyone likes it. So, which is totally fine. Okay. So we'll let this dry. So that is the end of this session. Thank you for being here and watching the first session of the day. I will see you again tonight at 6 o'clock. So have a great day and we will talk later. Bye.